how much impact did Bharat Jodo have in Karnataka? I am a little doubtful. The data doesn't entirely support.
We have seen for a long time that state elections are giving very clear mandates. And you're saying this was absent from the BJP?
I'm saying that the BJP didn't have a conversation around this at all, right? Because they kind of seemed lost.
JDS, I think, falling below 20 was also unexpected. We thought it would be 20-25, but their vote share also considerably fell.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of The Big Story. Special because it has our faces this time.
Finally.
Finally, we are real humans and not AI generated. Yeah. And also special because we are going to be discussing the Karnataka election.
The hot topic of the week.
Hot topic of the week and the weekend and everything. But हमने थोड़ी अब सांस ले लिया थोड़े ये hardworking लोगों ने थोड़ा एक दिन अपनी Sunday मना के they have come with us. We have analyzed some data, some trends, and we are going to be talking about it.
So on this podcast, we are joined by Fatima Khan, who is a principal correspondent with the Quint, and she's been on the ground ahead of the Karnataka elections. Hi.
And we have Mr. Aditya Menon, who's our political editor.
Hello.
And we are going to talk about Karnataka. So, guys, first reactions, कैसा था इस बार का election?
Fatma should go first since she was on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think covering elections, if you ask me, is always so much fun, regardless of what's happening. If it's a close fight or if it's expected to be a sweep by any party, it's always fun to be on the ground. I think as journalists, when we travel to any state, be it UP, which and because of proximity we travel to a lot more, or Karnataka, which we don't really travel as much as we should. But it's always an experience because I think you realize just how politics changes. इंडिया में कहते हैं कि हर थोड़े किलोमीटर में पॉलिटिक्स बदल जाती है, जब इतने दूर जाओ तो और पता चलता है. एंड it was really fun. And ये भी realization होता है कि I think this election में I was very refreshed to see that usually we are so typical जो election के narratives हो गए पिछले कुछ सालों में ये होगा, but इसमें बहुत refreshing था कि corruption एक main मुद्दा है जो मुझे नहीं लगता है कि state elections in the last couple of years कि इतना importance इस पे दी गई है.
Last time corruption was issue was so much पहले.
My school में था
उसमें. We actually did a documentary on the hijab ban last year, so I was there and earlier as well. But I think this time when election reporting is a different vibe. I think people are much more willing to speak to you. They're very welcoming. There's always the sense of, with not trying to exoticize the place, but food ends up playing a really important role.
We saw on your Instagram about all the food that you had. I put up a story after
this that I was really missing Karnataka food, especially Bangalore food. So good, incredible.
Bangalore doshas are the best.
Bangalore doshas are the best, undeniable. So I think my morning, lunch, dinner was dosa. That's what I had unapologetically. So all of that was great. And I think on the election day, what as journalists we were happy about was the fact that it wasn't going to be a very late night. We kind of knew in the early hours ki kya hone wala hai. So from that perspective also it was
so this exciting. Sort of brings me to you, Aditya. She talked about election day, counting day not being a very undecisive result, and this we have seen for a long time that state elections are giving very clear mandates, right? So what is your
it's a relief, of course, because had
more confusion.
Had the verdict not been so clear, we won't be so relaxed.
Exactly, ये podcast नहीं हो रहा था क्योंकि हम अभी यही सोच रहे होते कौन Congress Assembly.
I think voters, they have seen this drama of MLAs being hoarded into resorts and MLAs changing sides and governments falling and new governments being built based on...
I'm from Maharashtra, I relate.
Absolutely. You know better than most others. And obviously we all know a slightly dubious means being used to, by MLAs. So I think people are also fed up, and if they feel that the narrative is in one direction, many of these undecided voters they decide
swing
कि ठीक है हम सारे उसी को दे देते हैं
at least stability तो बनी रहेगी
कि हवा चल रही है सब उसी तरफ दे दें. So I think that's why even Congress, even by their own estimates, did better than probably they would have, and definitely better than they have done in past 3-4 elections. So probably I think people's desire for a stable government think we shouldn't underestimate that.
Yes. So Anjali, why don't you take us through the results
so
this time?
taking you through the results, there were 224 seats up for grabs in the Karnataka elections this time around, and that put the majority mark at 113. The Congress won 135 seats, which is a clean sweep, obviously. The BJP's count this time around went down to 66, and JDS won 19 seats. So, first of all, I would like to ask Aditya, did you expect this kind of a result at all?
I didn't. I thought, we knew Congress was ahead. We probably thought they'll just about cross the halfway mark, but I didn't expect 130 plus. The reason for that is because I think they got 122 in 2013, and that time BJP had split into like 3 parties.
Right.
So the common sense that I used was, if it didn't happen then, why would it happen now? But clearly I misunderstood what the voters wanted. I didn't expect this kind of a result. Though probably most of us expected the direction to be in this way. JDS, I think, falling below 20 was also unexpected. We thought it would be 20-25, but their vote share also considerably fell. I think.
And in the, especially, we'll talk about region-specific numbers in their bastion, old Mysore, and
and the JDS votes have gone not just to Congress but also BJP.
Also to BJP, yeah. Okay, so let us track back a little bit and talk about Karnataka politics holistically. कि किन चीजों पे डिपेंड होती है कर्नाटका की politics? What are the issues that usually come up? Fatima, if you can talk about some of the issues that were relevant this time. What is Karnataka politics all about, historically and now?
I think historical perspective we can give. I'll give you the
I'm
situation.
older since
He's covered this for way longer.
Pretty more historical person.
ये गलत बात बोल दी, हिस्ट्री की बात तो सर करेंगे.
I meant like expert. Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get Fatima's point. So Karnataka, like of course most other Indian states, caste plays a very big role. There are 2 big castes in Karnataka, Lingayats and Vokkaligas. Lingayats have traditionally voted BJP. Vokkaligas have traditionally leaned toward JDS, but sometimes a big chunk goes to the Congress as well. Then there are OBC voters. The biggest OBC caste is Kuruba, to which former Chief Minister Siddaramaiah belongs. And then there are very sizable chunk of Dalit voters and Muslim voters. So Dalits and Muslims and OBCs have been this sort of core base of the Congress. It's the base together in Kannada is called Ahinda, as like it's acronym of these 3 communities. Devaraj Urs, Fatima had written an article in which she had mentioned that Devaraj Urs, the former chief minister, he sort of cobbled together this social coalition, and Siddaramaiah revived it for the Congress 2013 onwards. So yeah, that's been the core Congress coalition. The core JDS coalition has been Vokkaligas, some Dalits, some Muslims. BJP's coalition has been Lingayats predominantly and a lot of upper castes. Yediyurappa, however, got a chunk of OBC votes also towards the BJP. So yeah, caste has been one factor. The other very big factor in Karnataka is welfare schemes. I think people have very high standards for their government. They want the government to be efficient. They also want the government to deliver certain core welfare schemes to them and make their lives easier, be it in terms of subsidies, be it in terms of cash benefits. So yeah, these 2 things determine which party manages to cobble together the best social coalition and which party manages to convince voters that they will give these welfare benefits in a most efficient manner. I think broadly this has been the pattern.
And what about
specific to this election? I mean, a lot of the media coverage talked about, yes, there were recent issues like the hijab ban. There was also the Amul versus Nandini. So in your experience on the field, how much were these things being considered or discussed?
Yeah. See, I feel as issues, of course, they have found resonance in Karnataka society, right? I think we'd be amiss to say that people haven't bought this at all, right? But which is not to say that these aren't factors that people haven't voted on. What does that mean, right? When I go on field, I'll see people talking about the hijab ban, supporting the hijab ban. I think we extensively covered that in our documentary, that oftentimes we have this outlook that, okay, this is political parties or fringe elements or direct stakeholders who have an opinion on this, the rest are indifferent. But that wasn't the case in the case of hijab ban. I had, met students who previously had some of their closest friends who were hijab-wearing students who explicitly said that, look, no, they shouldn't be wearing it. Education is more important. A lot of, just that vicious communalism had spread in our schools, and I saw that firsthand. But when people go on to vote, right, there is this factor that, okay, the government has brought out hijab ban, the government is trying to ban halal meat, the government is trying to somehow, or the peripheral players involved are trying to boycott Muslim vendors. All of this aside, what do we stand to gain, right? I think what we sometimes underestimate is that people are driven by self-interest, right? They're saying that, okay, this is happening with this community, but what is exactly happening to us? What are we gaining here? And I think that is a stand you will find a lot. I found a lot in Karnataka. I remember we covered the UP elections as well, where we found a lot of people who were talking about unemployment and how they are unemployed, but they're still going to vote for the BJP because of this Hindutva of politics, right? So they are prioritizing that in their heads. And because this is a democracy, voters get to prioritize what they want, right? And in this case, there was a very clear case of, look, all of this is happening and this is fine. What are we gaining, right? The corruption issue was so massive. The fact that this is something that we've written extensively about as well, that the Karnataka Contractors Association, which has traditionally, historically been a largely apolitical body, they haven't really taken a political stance per se. But for them to come out and say that this government is taking 40% commission for small
that I
big
think became
projects.
a slogan that
became a slogan,
really.
40% Sarkara, right? And I think Congress came in just at the right point and ran with it, which also showed at that time great political maneuvering and insight on how we can actually capitalize on these apolitical players raising these issues. When we say that corruption became a big issue, it wasn't just these associations or these political players, but people had internalized that, okay, ye to corrupt sarkar hai, which is the last time I think we saw during UPA. That it just became understood ki haan, ye to hai corrupt sarkar, it was taken as a matter of fact. You asked about communalism. It's a ground report we did that, okay, sure, communalism has risen in the state, but what else has risen? It's the voices of people fighting that communalism. Right? Civil society coming together in a way that we haven't seen in a UP or Gujarat. And people do like to draw those parallels routinely, saying that, oh, Karnataka is the new Gujarat of South India. And of course, I mean, people from the BJP have said that this is the laboratory for Hindutva in the South India. And also, just very evidently, it's the only foothold that the party had in South India. So they thought that, okay, if this template has worked a couple of times in Karnataka, of course it will work in the neighboring states. But what happens when people come together and say that this is unacceptable to us? And we've cited examples in our ground report. For example, this one Muslim watermelon vendor, his cart was broken and destroyed, right? And the visuals were just so jarring because watermelon also, right, when it's red, right? So the red blood kind of being splashed all over, that just stuck with people. We were just discussing how civil society groups really played an important role. For example, little things, right? Like there was this propaganda, fake news being spread about Tipu Sultan. And I mean, we've done Samarth, our colleague, has done a report on how it was basically a figment of imagination. They created two fictional characters, saying that these people who are from the Vokalika caste, they actually killed Tipu Sultan, when it is a historical fact that he died in war with the British. So these civil society groups, what they did is that they would make pamphlets in local languages and they'd spread across different villages and say
the civil society groups which you are saying have been apolitical for a long time, right?
So I think they're very strong in their resistance to politics of hate and Hindutva.
And in general, pro-people issues.
And then an apologetic word. But yes, when I was speaking to them, they said that, look, it's not like we're saying that when Congress will come, everything will be solved, right? We won't be in a utopia. We're aware of that. But right now, the immediate issue is this rising communalism. And they're also well aware of the fact that 2024 is around the corner. In that sense, also, Karnataka is extremely important. It sets the narrative, right? When you're saying that hate wins here, you're effectively setting the template of where else hate could win, potentially.
So basically the civil society is saying you may say what you want to, but we want to talk about things that are more real to us. Things that are more, they are basically saying this is what is important to us. You may try and tell us that maybe communalism is more important, is what might work. but we stand against corruption. We stand
I think at least
for welfare.
Their view was that this communalism should not go unchallenged.
Right.
So we'll counter
Okay.
it. We'll counter if you're spreading fake news. We'll counter it with what what are the real facts. And so you don't get to create narratives, and you won't get an unchallenged run as probably they do get in many other states. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So we've got a basic idea of what politics even far back as a year or two before the elections. Now let's talk about the election-specific campaigns of both the major parties. What did Congress essentially do right this time that it got such a insane majority?
I think the Congress's narrative was very clear. Their narrative was that this is a corrupt government. This is a government that is taking away money that is meant for people, and we will first get rid of this government, and second, we will give you certain welfare schemes that we feel you are entitled to. So they have their 5 guarantees. The Congress's problem and solution is a very clear narrative. You identified a problem, you gave the solution. BJP's campaign, on the other hand, was slightly muddled up. They began, their entire while they were ruling, it was all about halal, hijab and all. But suddenly they turned to reservation for a section of Lingayats.
They removed the 4%.
Yeah, so then they tried to do a little bit of caste engineering. But when PM started campaigning, they bought Bajrang Bali. So, voters were like, what is this really about? What is your core idea? What's your main plan? So, I think it was very clear that Congress's narrative was clearer. I think Fatima would probably know better from the ground.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I did see people. Also, more than that, just sense of frustration with the BJP, right? There's this sense of, one, the fact that you have had such an unstable government. Generally, I think all of those also just there was this sense of exasperation amongst the voters that, okay, at least there is this one party that at the moment is standing united. We have clear leadership faces. We have a clear, strong local leadership, and it's not just the top leadership, but even the second rung and third rung leaders, right? Very clear faces that, okay, if I'm going to vote, I'm voting for this person or this person, right? That was a miss in the BJP. Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi all went there to campaign, but after a while they gave a free rein to the local leadership, meaning DK Shivkumar, Siddaramaiah, Kharge. These people actually did the heavy lifting when it came to Congress campaigning, the road shows, the rallies, even the strategizing, right? Even things like ticket distribution, social engineering, ensuring, which caste gets how much representation in our ticket distribution. All of those things were decided at a very local level. And
you're saying this was absent from the BJP?
I'm saying that the BJP didn't have a conversation around this at all, right? They kind of seemed lost, which is unlike BJP, right? Because
BJP is said to be that election machinery.
Exactly,
right?
The narrative at least around BJP is that Amit Shah is so involved even in like the local elections in like some far out
Hyderabad
state. So that is the narrative. So here it seemed a little last minute the way they were trying to plan everything, and almost. I think that desperation was also evident when TV channel anchors are routinely talking about how the PM did like 20 roadshows in the last week. Why did the PM have to do that, right? I think, and I always say this, that political parties know better than any analyst or reporter can than what is happening on the ground, right? They have their people there. So there is this sense that, okay, if the PM is having to come down so many times and routinely like spend all this time in Karnataka, it's because they know that something's wrong, something's not going right.
So interesting, Fatima, you mentioned about the PM and the local leadership. I just have the cover pages of the 2 manifestos with me, and if you see the BJP ka manifesto, Narendra Modi takes center stage. We'll also show it up in graphics, and then the most popular, tallest leader of Karnataka, Yediyurappa, he's literally sidelined. And like then there is JP Nadda, and then Bommai is literally like out of the picture. But whereas if you see Congress's thing, the thing that you were talking about, right? The messaging of a strong local leadership, a strong vision for the government, at least electorally, that even from a manifesto, and I am of the opinion that manifestos don't tend to matter a lot.
But visuals do.
Visuals do, exactly. So I'm saying even in something as basic as a manifesto, you see Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi have like a small picture over here, and your DK Shivkumar and Siddaramaiah are the two biggest leaders, right?
In fact, when the elections results were being announced, one of the TV show Hindi channels, you know how they have a mock-up of all the leaders, and I think we noticed that JP Nanda they showed wearing a lungi. Because they didn't know how to represent BJP and South India, and you know,
with a single face,
so they just lungi pehna dete, you know. So that was very telling.
And also talking about these 5 guarantees of Congress, were they a big talking point on ground
amongst the people?
So yes, I mean these things do come up when you talk to them, but I think at this point voters also kind of know that, like you said, manifesto promises are manifesto promises. At the end of the day, they don't take it on face value. But I think more than anything else, what the Congress's most important or biggest selling point at this point was just the fact that we might be able to give you a stable government, which the other parties and
which Aditya also mentioned that in general across states people are preferring a more stable.
And especially given Karnataka's history, right? Given
that last election.
A handful of chief, and not just in recent times, but ever since Karnataka has come into being,
people haven't
a handful of chief ministers have completed their 5-year term. So those things that really are like, okay, not again, you know, we don't want to be in the national news cycle again. There's just that sense.
So we spoke about BJP, Karnataka being very important for BJP as an entry into South Indian politics. And the 2018 win, which really wasn't a clean sweep, but it gave them some hope of being, a major party in South India. So this loss, how far back does that set the BJP's expectations?
So I mean, in Karnataka, BJP has always done better at the central level. So even 2018 they didn't win a clear majority, but they swept 25 out of 28 seats in the Lok Sabha level. Then in 2013 again Congress swept, BJP did very badly. They got just 40 seats in the Vidhan Sabha, but in the Lok Sabha again they got 18 out of 28. So I think at the central level things might be different, and that's what the BJP hopes. They feel that Prime Minister Modi is popular, and the Modi factor will work more at the national level than at the state level. But definitely compared to last time, they will be at a net loss. There's no way that they can repeat 25 by 28. So BJP is looking at definitely losses in the excess of 10 seats probably. I think
this you're saying in the Lok
Sabha election. And generally in the south, of course, Karnataka is the only state where BJP is either number 1 or number 2. In no other state are they even number 2. So Telangana, they're trying to be number 2, but still, I mean, at least as of last election, they're number 3. Andhra Pradesh again, not even number 4 or 5. Kerala, they're number 3. Tamil Nadu, they're a very distant player. In South, I think BJP has been pushed back a bit because of this result.
Now, talking about Congress, definitely this win and such a clear win would be a morale booster for the Congress camp, right? And does that reflect on Rahul Gandhi's image as like a central leader? Even though he wasn't part of this campaign, like as a person taking the limelight, but
undoubtedly, I mean, I was speaking to a Congress leader and he said that if we lose Karnataka, 24 is over for us. So now that they've won, it's definitely, there's a lot of energy in the Congress. They feel that they can make an impact in the elections that are taking place later this year in Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Mizoram. So they feel that they can probably retain one state among Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, maybe both. I mean, they are being optimistic. They also feel that they have a very good chance in Madhya Pradesh. And also because Telangana and Karnataka are just adjacent to each other, they feel that the Karnataka win might just boost their chances in Telangana. So, of course, there's the state election, then there is the central election.
And what about Rahul Gandhi as
Rahul Gandhi, so
Congress
the
leader?
thing is, he, after Bharat Jodo, he has become the unquestioned face of the Congress nationally. I think there is no one who will doubt Rahul Gandhi's leadership now. He's proven his mettle. How much impact did Bharat Jodo have in Karnataka? I am a little doubtful. The data doesn't entirely support that there was a very big impact. It did benefit Congress, no doubt, but it didn't harm BJP.
Okay.
Congress, I think, gained more at JDS's expense. That's what the data is telling us in the Bharat Jodo Yatra route areas, at least.
Out of the 51 seats, I think 70.
Yeah, so 51 I think is like all the districts combined. The route itself had 20 seats.
constituencies and 15 they won.
Yeah, they won.
15.
So
And last time 5 of these. They
So in
had
terms
won.
of winning, they did better. But in terms of vote share,
Vote
BJP
share,
didn't lose anything.
Exactly. So this was my question in general for the Karnataka election कि for sure Congress जीती है, but क्या BJP actually हारी है? Because if you look at the vote share for BJP, it hasn't reduced by that
तो
much.
वो थोड़ा सा स्पिन है बीजेपी के तरफ से कि हमारा वोट शेयर कम नहीं हुआ. असल में क्या हुआ है कि बीजेपी ने कुछ वोट शेयर उनका बढ़ गया है जो जेडीएस के एरियाज थे, ओल्ड मैसूर एरिया में, वहां पे बीजेपी सडनली इम्प्रूव कर गई है. सीटों में नहीं तब्दील हुआ, लेकिन उनके वहां पे वोट्स बढ़ गए, लेकिन बाकी इलाकों में उनके वोट्स कम हुए हैं.
और जहाँ तुम्हारा स्ट्रॉन्ग होल्ड था वहाँ तो कम हुआ है.
कोस्टल में कम हुआ है. इनके सिर्फ 2 इलाकों में बढ़े हैं, बैंगलोर शहर में बढ़े हैं और ओल्ड मैसूर एरिया में बढ़े
जिसके
हैं.
अराउंड दे आर ट्राइंग टू बिल्ड अ स्टोरी
कि हमारा वोट शेयर तो वहीं का वहीं है, लेकिन बाकी इलाकों में तो वोट शेयर काफी गिर गया है. तो ये भी ठीक नहीं है कि बीजेपी हारी नहीं है, बीजेपी हारी ही है.
Okay.
And since we also mentioned JDS, what does this election result say for them?
So JDS, for them, I think it's become a crisis of existence, because this will now be, except if we look at the 2018 to 19 brief period, they have been out of power now since over a decade. So this is a party, obviously being in power is essential for them, and I think when Fatima also must have noticed in the ground, a lot of JDS voters, especially among minorities and Dalits, were probably shifting to the Congress, right?
Yeah, and I mean data is also telling us that, right? Like if the exit poll data, if we go by that, 88% Muslims backing the Congress. You know, Congress making such incredible gains amongst scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and in the SC and ST reserved seats as well. All of this is telling us something that, I mean, I think with Muslims it's a very clear case of honestly just solidly backing a political party that will be able to defeat the BJP. I think every state election is somewhere turning out to be an existential election for the community across many states.
So now that it's established, we have talked about the reasons why Congress won, why BJP lost. And Congress now, it is established that they have won with like a very clear majority. What next from here? Who will be, you know, leading the Congress in Karnataka?
Ladies first.
Hey, son. This is a tricky question.
Yes.
It's interesting. It's fascinating because I know a lot of people make this parallel with Rajasthan.
Exactly.
And I was just thinking about it, and I think there are some striking differences, right? The biggest one being age. Shiv Kumar turned 62 right now, and this one is Siddaramaiah is 75. So I think in that sense, you would imagine that Shiv Kumar would be a little more anxious in wanting to take over that CM, especially knowing in a state where there is such, as we have talked about repeatedly, there is this history of instability, right? So you have that anxiety. But also, I think there is a history of more bitterness in Rajasthan between the two players. I mean, their lot has called Sachin Pilot Nikamma and, you know, foreign educated who doesn't know anything about the state. And Pilot, as recently as last month, went on a protest fast against his own government. You know, none of that level of bitterness, at least publicly, we've ever seen outplay between these two players in Karnataka. So I think there is scope for a little more negotiation and bargaining and convincing the two players to sit down and have some conversation, but that is ultimately up to the leadership and the kind of political savvy they employ at this point to be able to achieve that. I know in the leadership, when you speak to people in Congress's Delhi unit, which is, I mean, the central unit, there is the sense that, okay, ideally what we would want is for Siddaramaiah to continue to take over as CM because he has more experience. He's of course incredibly popular amongst the state, right? He's a mass leader in a way that Shiv Kumar isn't, but we'd want Shiv Kumar to continue as the KPCC chief because especially with 2024 around the corner, he's a wartime general, right? He's basically that. He's incredible in being able to just pragmatically make all sides happy and just do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
You know, he's that kind of a man. So that would be an ideal scenario for the Congress leadership. But let's see how it pans out.
But more or less, Congress is expecting that the decision will be amicable, right?
They are wanting that, and I mean, I think it is in everyone's best interest, including the two players, because as you've seen in Rajasthan, any kind of like public fallout doesn't help. Either Pilot or Gehlot or the party, it doesn't really serve to help you.
Or the opposition's image in general, right? The whole thing of opposition united nahi hai. Oh, the biggest example people throw is Pilot in this. So in our video with the Quint, you talked about the 3 scenarios that can happen now, right? Unme se ab that you talked about on election day.
But you also mentioned that it depends on how close to the majority mark the Congress will be.
Yeah, now of course it's clear that the Congress has a very stable majority, and it sort of helps Siddaramaia's case a little more because since it's a clear mandate, you don't need other MLAs and so in that sense, Shiv Kumar's bargaining power reduced a bit. Obviously, but the 3 scenarios still remain. They could go with Siddaramaiah, they could go with DK Shiv Kumar, they could also go for a 2.5 year power sharing agreement. A lot again depends on what Mallikarjun Kharge does. Of course, one reason because he's the Congress president, but also because there are a set of MLAs, we don't know how many numbers, some say 20, some say 30, who are loyal to Kharge and not to any of the other major leaders. So he can actually turn it in favor of one or the other of the 2 leaders. I think if one has to look into what Kharge might be thinking, he would be looking who will be the best leader as far as the 2024 Lok Sabha elections is concerned. But even then, there are no easy answers because Siddaramaiah controls the base of the Ahinda voters. But DK Shiv Kumar has the loyalty of the organization. And generally, he's a much more of a team player than Siddaramaiah is. So it's a very difficult choice for Kharge. It would have been best if one person was the answer to all the criteria. But unfortunately, that isn't the case.
But have we seen him historically lean towards either one of them?
So historically, it's a little strange. Siddaramaiah and Kharge don't have a great history. Siddaramaiah sort of, when he became prominent after, he's not traditionally a congressman. He came in from the Janata Dal Secular. Kharge was eased out into the central politics because Siddaramaiah became the dominant person here. So yeah, Kharge that way has some bad history with Siddaramaiah, but Kharge is also magnanimous enough to forget that and look for the party's larger interests.
And he can't ignore his popularity.
Exactly. So yeah, Kharge in that sense isn't like a Gehlot who sort of isn't, who just isn't able to concede anything to Sachin Pilot. So yeah, I think we'll have to see what the Congress president does here.
And finally, guys, what does it mean for the 2024 elections?
So for
both for Congress, for BJP, and for India overall.
I think for Congress, definitely it gives them a lease of life. It also gives them a model by which they can fight the BJP. You know, obviously, Karnataka, it was localized issue, local leadership, local factors. It can't be scaled up nationally because for an MP's election, people vote very differently. But there's still some tricks there. The trick is that, I mean, people are really reeling under price rise and unemployment. So a very strong pro-poor thrust in their campaign might just help Congress.
Even in Karnataka, the poor segment has outrightly come out.
If you see what Mr. Gehlot is doing in Rajasthan, he has started these Mehngai Rahat camps in which all the welfare schemes, people can just come, submit their documents and get them implemented, like avail of those benefits just by coming and signing a few forms in one place. So I was there in Savai Madhapur a little while back, and every bus stand has those camps. So in that sense, Congress is trying to make that their main plank for the Lok Sabha elections, it seems. So yeah, that's as far as Congress is concerned. The BJP, I think they obviously would have figured out that Modi factor is the only factor that they have. And Bangalore city, the way Modi's roadshow, and I mean, one has to concede it did turn votes. BJP did do well in Bangalore city compared to last time. So, I mean, Modi's campaigning obviously had an impact. And Bangalore is also where the language issue doesn't come in the way of Modi communicating. So yeah, for BJP that is the lesson, but it is also the lesson that you can't take state leaders for granted. And you can't undermine state leaders the way they probably did with Yediyurappa. So yeah, I think these are the main lessons for the two parties. Yeah.
Yeah, speak on that Modi point. I remember when I was in Bangalore, I tried to make it to a Modi roadshow, and when I did, and I spoke to some people there, and it was very interesting where it was a very Delhi-like sentiment where we're like, oh, we want Modi at the center, but here we want, whatever Congress or JD, whoever they were supporting, but not BJP. Which is what you often see with Aam Aadmi Party supporters in New Delhi, where they're like, okay, we'll support AAP here, but we want BJP at the center. So I think in that sense, it is important to note that there is, of course, continues to be a huge Modi popularity across Karnataka, which might give us different results in 2024, right? That will play a role there. And I think most importantly, I think this election win will really help Rahul Gandhi's image because like we said that even though he wasn't hands-on, but ultimately it's all about optics, right? Politics is all about optics. So when you're able to say, okay, every poster will have Rahul Gandhi, Congress win ke jo ticker chal raha hai uske sath mein Rahul Gandhi ka face lagega. These things do play a role.
Also centrally, I would say Congress is Rahul Gandhi. As you said,
and even Bharat Jodo Yatra, right? They spend a lot of time in Karnataka. So even, there are ultimately data will only tell us quantifiable things, right? But after that, what does it in general? It's something that will be used repeatedly by Congress that, okay, we went there, Bharat Jodo did this, and look, we won. So that's a template that you can then use across states.
Absolutely. And yes, we will be there on ground in the upcoming elections, MP, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan. And I think the one lesson I can gather from this is just empowering local leaders, right?
It pays off.
Yeah. This was the big story and interesting conversation, I would say. Thanks a lot, Aditya, Fatima.
Thank you
for this chat. Madaya.
And hopefully we will be back with the next election results.
Yes. We should make this a thing. Comment below if you want both of us, Dumbos, and both of these two smart guys to talk about, one jumbo. If you want us to talk about elections, let us know in the comments below. And this was the big story. This is Prateek.
And this was Anjali.
Aditya.
And Fatima.
Thank you.